Hello and welcome to today's ScriptRunner live session, Manage VMware like a Rockstar. My name is Heiko, and I want to show you a few examples how ScriptRunner can help you to automate, delegate all kinds of recurring VMware tasks. So in the previous ScriptRunner live session, I talked about ScriptRunner in general. And so today it's about specific use cases around VMware. Yeah, so what does that mean? Let me add a presentation here quickly. So first off, if you want to get in touch with me after the session, would be happy to connect with you. I also put the links into the chat already. So feel free to get in touch with me or other colleagues from the team. Also, depending on where you are in your PowerShell journey, we have hundreds of PowerShell scripts for all kinds of platforms, of course, including VMware. And I'm going to put the link to these scripts also into the chat. So they're on github.com/ScriptRunner. You can find the scripts, you can download them, you can modify them. And actually, the things that I'm going to show you later on, most of the stuff is actually coming from the sample scripts and a little bit modified maybe here and there, but the basis is coming from these template scripts. All right, and something else before we actually dive into the topic. So if you're not already owning our PowerShell goodies like our poster, our cheat sheet for Teams in PowerShell and for Exchange in PowerShell, go to our website. You can download them or order them, and it's really helpful for your daily business when it comes to using PowerShell for all kinds of platforms. Okay, coming back to the VMware topic. So of course, we're talking PowerCLI, the module that all the examples I will show you are based on. The PowerCLI module has been around for quite some time. Basically, I think VMware was one of the first third-party vendors who started to build their own PowerShell module when PowerShell got published in 2006. And it's basically about all aspects of vSphere management, automating all kinds of stuff. And we're going to take a look at a few examples here. We will not cover all commands because there are a lot. The current version is 13.1, and I just checked recently, so there are 7.2 million downloads of this module. So it looks like many people are using it, probably with Windows PowerShell as well as with PowerShell 7. Example use cases. So what can you do when it comes to using PowerCLI? Obviously, you can create, you can manage, you can remove VMs. You can start, stop, restart. You can change configurations, and we will take a look at an example in this regards as well. You can manage the snapshots. You can make all kinds of changes to your infrastructure, to your networks, to your storage, stuff like that based on PowerShell. And of course, you can create reports about the current state of your VMware environment. And the way I want to show you that is, in a hopefully well-structured way. Because why I'm mentioning this? Because when we look at organizations using PowerShell, no matter if it's with VMware or other platforms, sometimes the landscape looks like this, where you have all kinds of scripts all over the place for many different use cases. And what I want to show you is this kind of scenario where it becomes pretty clear where you have a script to create a new VM, to maybe stop VMs, to manage your snapshots and stuff like that. So that's what we're going to focus on. And so enough of theory. So what does that mean if we say, okay, we want to enable you to manage VMware like a Rockstar, which actually I got some funny comments on. But what does it mean? It means that we want to make it easy to work with PowerShell. We want to enable you to take PowerShell and make it a cornerstone of your automation strategy. And we will take a look at what that means in conjunction with VMware. All right, and I'm trying to have a view on the comments. So if there are any questions coming in, I will try to answer them, or we will also have some time at the end of the session so we can go through any kinds of questions that you might have. All right. Okay. So what does it mean using ScriptRunner for VMware and together with PowerShell? So first off, we are working with a web-based portal, and this is a role-based portal. So depending on if you're a ScriptRunner administrator, maybe if you're a help desk person where you want to delegate certain tasks to, or maybe you're an end user, you experience the portal in different ways. As an administrator, you have obviously all possibilities to manage all your scripts, your credentials, and all the different bits and pieces. And we're going to through this step by step. And so here we are in the portal as an administrator, and I can take a look at the dashboard here. I can see what's happened just now, and there is some VMware stuff happening, but also obviously other platforms. As we're talking about PowerShell, it's very versatile, so obviously you can use it for all kinds of different platforms as well. Then we have the monitoring area where you can see what's actually happening and what happened with all your PowerShell executions. And we will take a look at the configuration, which means how you manage your scripts, your credentials, the systems that you want to manage, how you start to delegate and automate these different tasks. And we're going to take a look at a couple of settings, for example, the connectors. When it comes to managing and using PowerShell in a well-organized, centralized way, it all starts with the scripts. So what we see here are the scripts that I have on my machine for VMware. You might notice I've set a filter, so to make sure I'm only seeing the scripts that are related to VMware. And you can see I have many more scripts for AD, for Exchange, Office 365, and so on. But here, now we talk about VMware. So here is the list of the existing scripts. So what you can do is, for example, let's say we have a script that allows us to change configurations of VMs. And then we can click on this. I can see the header information. I can see the existing parameters of this underlying script. I can use the code editor, so I can take a look at the script. And what I also can do, I can check out the script. I can make changes to this script. So that enables you to kind of have a centralized web-based way of maybe modifying scripts. Of course, if you're using things like GitHub, Azure DevOps, stuff like that, you will probably not activate that. But it's part of the solution that allows you to view the code and also make modifications to it. And then if you allow modifications, you can also make a diff. You can see where scripts have been changed between different versions, and also allows you to go back to previous versions if you want to do that. And you can see where the script is actually being used. So as I said, step one is getting all the information, all the scripts in a single place in a repository, and maybe synchronizing it with your Azure DevOps, with your GitHub scenario in the background. Of course, often used option. You can easily add additional scripts that you might want to add to the configuration, or you can have directly access to the scripts that we have on GitHub. So we can go into the VMware section and say, okay, I need a script to maybe stop and start or to create new snapshots. Then I can take a look at the script and I can say, okay, that's the one I want. And then I can make it become part of my local configuration. And what we also provided just recently is the possibility to create new scripts based on ChatGPT. It's an option, which means, of course, you need to have your own ChatGPT key, your OpenAI key, and based on that, for example, with this minimum effort prompt, I want to create a new VMware VM. Hopefully, we get some interesting result and some useful result. So this kind of obviously depends on the ChatGPT backend. But what the result should look like and what should include is not only the code, but also showing and coming back with a complete structure of a script, meaning there is a synopsis with already some ScriptRunner specific information. There is a parent block, there's a try-catch block, there are some other specific things that help you to optimize the scripts with ScriptRunner or for ScriptRunner. And as a result, for example, and I'm going to show you that when we look at the help desk delegation part of things, you can, if you're in a multi-language scenario, you can use these language prefixes to tell ScriptRunner if the user switches to Spanish, that's the information that we should display for the parameter VM name, for example. So yes, we have a synopsis, we have a parent block, we have the try catch block, and here we have the information that is specific for ScriptRunner. So this is one of the variables that helps you to configure what the user should see once either the execution of a script was successful or if there was an error. And when we talk about executing a script, very important, it's never the user or a system in the background that maybe a third-party system like an ITSM system that executes the script. It's always the users and the systems tell the ScriptRunner server, run the script for me with my input. So there's a distinct separation between the PowerShell world and what you might want to delegate to users. Yeah, so this, just as an example, I think shows that ChatGPT can be useful, especially for modules like PowerCLI, because it's been around for quite some time, and the results are typically quite good. And is it perfect? No, probably not. Does it help you to save time? Probably yes. So that's, I think, the interesting part of using ChatGPT, because you're not starting on a blank page. You already have something that you can work with. Okay, so that's the script part. Now, obviously, we need the credentials to connect to our VMware environment. And again, of course, credentials can be different for different systems. And again, because we have the filter, we only see the ones for VMware. If I'm just for the fun of it, I remove that, you can see, okay, there is credentials for all kinds of platforms that you might want to manage, of course. But let's go back to the filter here. So credentials also could be something that you want to pull out of a password server. So there are two ways of storing these credentials. They could be stored locally, or they could be stored in a password server, meaning ScriptRunner is going to ask for the credential to connect to your vSphere environment in real time when there is a script that wants to connect to your environment. And that's, of course, a very secure way of working with the credentials. And of course, and you will see that later on, one of the goals is no credentials anywhere near your scripts, right? So that's a given, but still important. And sometimes, as we hear, it still happens. Okay, so credentials enables ScriptRunner to say, okay, what can I use to connect to a system? And the second, of course, question is, okay, what systems do I actually want to connect to, which is in our term called targets. These are the systems that you want to manage. For example, your VMware environment, or your Exchange, or your Office 365, or your Active Directory. And the target brings together the information of what do you want to connect to, and what's actually the credential that's going to be used. Meaning, whenever you later on you use the target, that tells ScriptRunner what to do. The next part here are the queries. The queries meaning what should the user actually be able to select? What does that from let's say you want to enable someone to create or to look at snapshots for particular VMs. Do you want the people to type the names of the VMs? Do they know what to type? Probably not. So they will make errors or it will not work at all. So what you can do instead, you create queries. And the queries meaning you provide a list of information. So that could be something like a list of VMs and a couple of properties of this VM. So if we look at this one, so here is the list of my VMs. And here, if we look at the JSON data, it's a whole bunch of parameters of values that we can use, and we will use when I show you a few examples, to say, okay, I can see the number of CPUs, and maybe I want to enable people to change the CPUs in some certain scenarios. And so the queries are here to make sure people can pick and choose from lists. They don't have to type, and it enables you to define what actually is visible for a user in help desk or a junior admin in a specific region or in a specific team. So of course it can be as granular as necessary. So the queries are here to create all these kinds of lists based on, like what you see here, mainly scripted query. There is also a list query, and I will show you a few examples how that is kind of connected to the actual use case, because that brings us to the next step. which are the actions. So what do you want to delegate? What do you want to automate? What do you want to manage based on your PowerShell scripts? And here, I have 5 use cases: creating a report, manage VMs, change VM configuration, check VMware snapshots, and create a new VM. And before we dive into the configuration of this, I want to show you how that scenarios look from maybe a junior admin perspective or a help desk person, or maybe even, if you want to go down this road, even maybe a end user in a line of business that you want to enable to create a report of a VM, or maybe stop a VM that they don't need at the moment. That is all configured in what we call action. This is kind of the run book. This brings together all the bits and pieces, scripts, credentials, targets, and queries. But we come back to this later. Now let's switch the browser and the role, because now I am logged in as a help desk person. And as a help desk person, I can do 2 things. I can run actions, use cases that have been delegated to me. So here I have 5 VMware use cases, and I can take a look at reports of executions that I have done in the past. And I could go back and say, okay, I want to see the report that I've created for all my VMs, for example. But let's go back first to the run mode, because the first step actually might be you want to say, okay, I want to create a report, but maybe I only want to see the VMs that are started at the moment. What you see here is there is a description of what this use case is all about. You can even, as you can see, because it's markup, you can even add some pictures here to give an idea how the result should look like. And coming back to the scenario earlier, it might be in a multi-language scenario. If you, let's say, switch to Spanish, the information here switches as well. And for example, this information is directly related to what you have configured in your synopsis based on this language prefixes. All right, so there's nothing much to do. I can say, okay, yeah, I want to create this report, and this might take a little bit connecting to the background back-end system. So in the meantime, let's go to the next use case, and then we will take a look at, of course, go back to the reporting. Something else that you might want to consider to automate and delegate is you want to allow people to maybe stop, start, restart VMs in this particular scenario. So what we see here is, coming back to the idea of having queries, this shows me all the VMs that I'm responsible for. Maybe it could be just a subset. In this case, it's all the VMs that are available here. And here are the options. So I could say, okay, this is powered off. I want to start this VM. And there's a little checkbox. I will come back to that says it will push a message to a Teams channel. What does that even mean? We will see that in a minute. So now this runs in parallel to the other action. And so if we go back to this one here where we create the report, so this is the report we created. I can go to the complete page here, see all the reports of the VMs that are running at the moment. And as I said, based on the reporting, of course, I could go back to this here as well. If I need to get back to this report, I can always go back to that scenario. Let's go to, okay, so here, okay, the start of the VM was obviously successful. A little bit over the top message. Let's go to the plain text one that says, okay, the start command was successful, so my VM 17 is started now. Okay, great. What if I want to allow people to make maybe changes to VMs? So again, I have a list of my existing VMs. I can select from the list. And again, it could be different depending on different roles. And here, what I can see, a couple of information sort of parameters, and some of them are read-only. I can't change them. And a few of them I can change. So the idea here is you can display all the information that is necessary for the user to understand what happens here. And then you can say, okay, only a few parameters I want to allow to make changes to it. For example, I want to allow to change the number of CPUs. So I type in the number, and now in the background again, ScriptRunner is executing the script and connecting to VM. Now, you might say, okay, if this is a text field with 8, where I can maybe even type in 9 or 11 CPUs, that's not what I want. I want to have some guidelines. The users should not just be able to type anything. That's a good part where we can go back to the configuration and take a look at the action that is configured in order to make these changes to the VM. Because here again, you could say, okay, I want to provide a list of possible options, like the number of CPUs. So if we open this use case here, where we change the VM, I can see an overview, what script is being used. Do I have a query? That's the one with the multiple objects that came back with the JSON data. Do we have some delegations? Yes, we have. And if we go to the script section, I can see information like, okay, where do we connect to? What is actually the credential that we're using to connect to VMware? Of course, as a user, I didn't see it. I don't see all the information because it's set to hidden. And that's, of course, what we want. There are other parameters also set to hidden. And then we see all the different ones. For example, the number of CPUs. Now, what we could do here, instead of just having a text field for numbers, obviously, we could say, okay, we link this to a query that comes back with a list of the CPUs that I want the user to allow to use. And so if I do that, so now I said, okay, this is not just a plain text field anymore. Now it's connected to a query. And as a result, okay, so the action was successful. That's great. Now, as a result, if I go in here, I can see now there is no typing. I have a list of CPUs that I can select from. And that's one of the things that you, for example, can do with queries to make sure people are only allowed to do the things that you want them to be able to do. Now, let's go back to the scenario where we had this little icon that says push message to Teams channel. What does that mean? So let's say you have some critical stuff happening, and what you want to do, you want to push this information directly into a Teams channel of your IT operations team. That's exactly what you see right here. So here I can see that someone triggered an action to change the VM configuration. I can see what has been changed. I can see which VM has been changed, which user did it, and from which IP it got triggered. So this information, of course, helps you to get in real time all this information across about what happened here with your, in this case, with your VM and with your VMware environment. And that's, of course, super helpful. Using these queries, of course, helps you to make sure users are only pick and choose the right things. And just to give you a quick idea, because we had this information about, or we saw this action where there were parameters visible, but not changeable by the user. And that's something, again, that you can do within your script by adding a specific read-only parameter. And that tells us, display the value, but don't make it something that the user can edit. And there are many more examples how you can kind of configure the behavior of a user interface by what you're doing in your scripts or with your scripts, basically. Yeah, so now we saw 3 examples in the portal activating this. Okay, that's fine. Now, what you can also do is you could say, I want to take this individual use cases and I want to make them available in an intranet site, in a self-service portal. Maybe I plug it into an ITSM portal where users are doing things already day in, day out. That's exactly what you can do, what you can see right here. So you can take in every individual use case. You can say, okay, this managing VMs should be something I want to make available like this, which we call a portal widget. Very easy to use. Of course, the user has to authenticate, so we can check if the user is able to and allowed to trigger this action. Of course, that's the same behavior as if I would be in the portal, but the accessibility is even easier now because nobody needs to know anything about PowerShell. Nobody needs to know anything about ScriptRunner in this case even. So that's, I think, a very nice way of presenting all kinds of use cases. Again, it depends on always, is it possible with PowerShell? And if the answer is yes, then you can make it available in ScriptRunner. Now, all these different activities, of course, they end up in the reporting engine. And here we are now again in the admin context. And so here, for example, I can see, yes, there was this user Tina started this action to change VM configuration, and I can see all the different parameters here. And I can also see what happened in the PowerShell host. So again, it's about being in control, having all the information available when it comes to using PowerShell, no matter if it's triggered by a user, what we saw just now, or maybe to take another use case here, of course, if it's something that runs scheduled. So let's say you have an action, a use case where you say, okay, I want to create reports, snapshots, make changes to configurations on a regular basis. Then you could say, okay, I'm enabling the scheduling. Maybe do something every hour, maybe twice a day, 3 times a week, once a month, whatever the use case might be. You can, of course, then activate the email notification so you get some result back. And that's, of course, something very helpful for organizations who maybe kind of struggle a little bit with using Windows task schedulers on maybe many different boxes where they really don't know if things are really working. You can put this into ScriptRunner as well. And of course, also these executions are then at the end, of course, become part of the reporting. So that's the second. So the first way of triggering scripts obviously is interactive. The second one is automatic. And the third one is event-driven, meaning you might have an ITSM system where when you want to provision a new VM, somebody has to approve it, and then the technical execution of actually creating the VM can be something that the ITSM system is directly communicating to ScriptRunner. I have one example here just to give you an idea how that could look like. For example, if you want to maybe stop a VM or start a VM, let's see which use case will work. So what does it mean? So you can talk to the ScriptRunner backend. You can tell what you want to do. So in our case, we want to take a VM. We want to start the manage your VMs action, and we want to trigger the start command. And if the machine is not already started, which is something I'm checking here, then which is the case right here. So let's go for the stop one maybe. So we get this example running here. Let's go back. So if it's okay, that looks better. So it's obviously started. So now we're doing the same thing, but now we are using the stop command. And now, based on this script that is part of our installation, actually, you can, in the background, automatically tell ScriptRunner which action to run, which parameter should be used, which parameter values should be used. And again, of course, also these executions are monitored and they become part of the reporting. In fact, what we can do here, we can take a look what's happening right now. We can see that it got triggered by a connector. We can see the parameters again. And we get the result back like, okay, it was successful. And the action is, ran successful. Every information is available here in the reporting. And if you say, okay, I'm only interested in the things that didn't work, and I can go in here and set the filter to only show the failed ones. And then I hopefully can see that, okay, there was some problem with some variables here. So that helps you, of course, to analyze things when it comes to finding out why maybe an execution of a script didn't work as expected. So these are a number of use cases that I wanted to show you in regards to using PowerShell with PowerCLI and ScriptRunner. And let's quickly go back to the presentation just to sum up what we saw. So in summary, when it comes to using ScriptRunner with PowerShell, in our case today with VMware, it enables you to standardize, automate all kind of delegate all kind of recurring tasks as long as they're built on PowerShell. Then you can trigger them in these 3 different ways we looked at: interactive for delegation, scheduled and event-driven. You have all the information in the monitoring, so you know what happened. You centralize all your scripts and modules management. In our case, of course, the PowerCLI module. You have a secure way of managing all the credentials. Of course, again, not just for VMware and PowerCLI, but for all the things that you want to manage with PowerShell and with ScriptRunner. And what we also saw, because when we talk about delegation, it not only needs to be secure, of course, but it also needs to be easy. And working with these web forms that we automatically create, it really becomes very easy to use PowerShell, not just for a technology for the experts in the background, but really open up the use cases and make it accessible through your IT team infrastructure to your help desk teams. But, and we see this with a growing number of customers, also, if you have end users that you want to enable to do certain things, that's something that you can do, of course, with ScriptRunner as well. Yeah, if you want to learn more, we have a landing page, which I'm also going to put into the chat, that kind of brings together all the different resources we have in regards to the solution and VMware. And so if you go to this page, you get information, access to the scripts, to existing recordings, to use cases, to blog articles, to the documentation. If you want to learn more, you're very welcome to do that. And with this, I'm coming to the end of today's ScriptRunner Live session. As I can see, no questions in the chat. So again, thanks for joining. I hope this was interesting to you. And yeah, stay connected, I would say, because we're going to have new ScriptRunner Live sessions in the next couple of weeks and months. And we always have our monthly webinar with this month, it's about Azure. So get in touch with us. And if you want to, accelerate your automation journey with what you're doing with PowerShell. So again, thanks a lot for attending, and keep on scripting. Bye-bye. See you next time.